concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
And that's what it looks like when I try to do a trippy spin. Here we go. Oh, let's trippy spin this light. Oh, is that it? Is that a trippy spin? Does that count? You tell me in the chat if you think that counts as a trippy spin. I mean, I don't feel like that counts. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of going backwards. Anyway. Whee! Yeah, I don't think that was a trippy spin. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the live stream. It is good to be back. Woo! Woo! It's good to be... Did you miss me? Oh, more like a crappy spin. Yeah. I can do trippy spins in the simulator. For like, I can just do trippy spins in the simulator, but somehow when I try to do them in real life, it doesn't work out. But I'm gonna keep working on it. How do I look? How's the room look? The room looks good. Oh, I got so many boxes. Hey, Gem Fan. You see this box? You see it? Wait, hang on, I'll point to it. There's those props you sent me, Gem Fan. Guess what? Hold on a second. Oh. Okay. Yeah, that is the parking lot where I flew Schizo Squad that one time. That's the very same one. Gem Fan sent me a batch of their new F3, F4 props. You may recall that they did a little recall of the those props because they were breaking too easily. Well, they sent me a batch of the new batch that they've been testing the crap out of, and I tested the crap out of them. And here, let me show you. I'll show you. So this, by the way, this is the Diatone Roma F5 V2 review. This is coming up on my channel, but this is, excuse me, welcome back. Sorry about that. Ha ha! He's back, boys! Oh my god, viewer count going down. This is one set of GemFan F4 props, the new batch. Hey, Ghost Branch, you know that tree in my yard you want me to trippy spin around? I thought, what better way to test the durability of the updated GemFan props than by trying to do that trippy spin. And I just repeatedly kept trying to do the trippy spin and failing. It's a very small tree. But I was just like, I'm just going to send it. And this is one set of props and I think one battery. And I can assure you that the last batch of the GemFan F4 props would not have survived this. They would have just shattered. So seems to me like GemFan has done a better job for what it's worth. Anyway, thank you, GemFan, for sending those. What is the F4? I don't know. F3, F4. It's just naming products. Naming products. Oh. I haven't even tried the 5226s yet. To be honest with you. I haven't. There you go. It's good to be back, folks. I am very, very happy to be back. I missed you guys. I missed streaming. I had a good time. It was actually not a vacation, for the record. Not that it matters to you, but it was not a vacation. It was a work trip. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to get me to leave. First of all, just to leave my house. Ha! I'm an introvert. It takes a lot to get me to leave my house and leave my channel and leave you guys. Part of being a YouTuber is that I think you kind of have to feel like you have a personal relationship with your channel and your audience. Otherwise, and it's let's be honest, it's a dysfunctional codependent relationship. You guys some of you are mean to me. Some of you tell me you love me. I can't decide, and I spend way too much time thinking about how you feel about me. So it's a dysfunctional relationship, but it is a relationship. And going away for 2 weeks more. I mean, I still posted content and I still answered messages, but it's not the same. It takes a lot to get me to do that. But it turns out there is a number. There's a number where when you say, "Hey, can you come do some work for me for 2 weeks?" And I say, I have to leave the channel. I don't. And you're like, there is a number where I go, oh, all right, I guess I'll do it. And somebody met that number, so. But now I'm back. I think 2 weeks is about the limit. Because at the end of, at first I was like, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I could do 2 weeks. But then at the end of the 2 weeks, I was like, oh my God. I'm ready to be home. Yeah. There's always a number. We've already agreed what you are. Now we're just haggling on price. One of my favorite jokes. There's some deep, yeah. So then when am I going to take a vacation? Actually, funny you mentioned that. I'm going to be going back to the playa for the first time in like 11 years. In about September, the first week in September, I'm going back to the playa, so I'll probably miss one weekend. I'm gonna actually I haven't asked him about this, but I'm gonna fly to Reno and go to the playa for 1 week. Burning Man's been canceled. And if you know anything about Burning Man, you know that means that a whole bunch of people just went, screw it, we're going anyway. And so It'll be one of the only chances in basically forever to actually be out there and a little bit of a smaller, more intimate setting. But Reno is not far from Nevada, not far from, Las Vegas. And I saw something that made me want to go to Las Vegas. Hang on, I'll show you what it was. I saw something that made me go, oh. I'm not going to play the music because I don't want to get a risk a copy strike or anything. But you can. This is you know who Slat FPV is. Slat, he posted this video. It's a 4-minute video. I'm not going to show the whole thing. No music. I'm not going to show the whole thing. But this guy, he's getting good. He's getting good. And this location kind of blew my mind. Look at this location. Look at this. Oh, what a choice location. Look at this. Oh my God. I was like, you know what? I should see if I could just, swing by. I think he lives in Vegas. I should just see if I can swing by Vegas and hang with him for a weekend on my way back from Reno. I haven't even asked him yet. Maybe he'll be like, no, I'm busy that week. I mean, I guess theoretically I could go even if he wasn't there, but that wouldn't be fun. Look at this. Look. Oh, Slat. My man. Jeez. He can't be the GOAT. He can't be the GOAT because he's too new. You can't be the GOAT when he has to hold out. He has to stick around for a little while longer before he's the GOAT. But this guy, he's got some potential. So it made me want to go to Vegas. Maybe I'll swing by there. Slat, hit me up. Anyway, we'll see. He's pretty good. It takes a pretty special freestyle video to make me sit there and go, watch it, and kind of watch it the whole way through. And that one did. That one was pretty impressive. So, Baskin FPV, there are some cuts in it, but there are long stretches of uncuts. I did think it was interesting. So he uses Hypersmooth, and I'm not one of the guys who says if you use Hypersmooth you're cheating. Hypersmooth is just a tool. Got pilots who look like he's clearly an amazing pilot, so he chooses to use Hypersmooth. He says sometimes it helps clear up issues. He says, I hate losing a take when the prop is bent and it blows the take. I do notice, though, let me find what I got to thinking about. Let me find the move I was thinking about. Hold on. There's a part where he pops off the wall. Oh, it's going to take me a minute to find it. Yeah, those little pops like that, Hypersmooth really just rounds them off. And it's a shame. Where's he going to do it? I wish you could have it both ways, but I guess you can't. He does a little flick off the wall, and I was like, that looked a little not very poppy. Are we going to find it? No, I don't know if we're going to find it. I don't know how long I want to sit here and wait. I'm never going to find it. Yeah. Those little sideways flicks like that. Get back to the wall. Come on, Slat. Oh, nice. Very nice. Well, anyway. Just another tool in the toolbox. Oh, wrong. Sorry about that. I'm out of practice. Anyway, great video. I want to fly that location. I'm not going to do it as good as him, but MPFPV says, I think on his other videos, he doesn't use Hypersmooth. No, that's not true. You can tell somebody uses Hypersmooth. You can mostly tell at the end. Check it out. Here's how you know for sure somebody's using Hypersmooth. Watch. Watch when he sits down. Ready? If they show a landing or a crash, you can always tell if they're using Hypersmooth. Watch. If you didn't already know this trick, many of you probably already know this trick. Watch what happens. There. Do you see that movement? He lands, but the image keeps moving slightly. There. That little to the right and down, that's Hypersmooth smoothing it out. And then watch, as he goes to pick it up, it starts moving before he grabs the quad. There. So you can see that on any time somebody shows you a landing or a crash, you can 100% tell if they're using Hypersmooth. And as far as I know, he uses it pretty much all the time. But yeah. So like the Hypersmooth gets this look to it. It's kind of like, you know, those like hollow body jazz guitars. Okay, not everybody's gonna know what that is. Think about like a hollow body jazz guitar, electric guitar, or are they semi hollow body? I don't know. And then they'll turn the treble all the way down, right? It still sounds good, but it's just got no bite to it. And that, to me, like, if you go watch, like, Farouk do Spang style, and it's like, flick, flick, snap, snap. You couldn't do that with Hypersmooth. So, anyway. Oh. Welcome back to the live stream, guys. What are we doing? Did you forget? We're going to be answering questions. I'm going to be taking your questions here in the regular chat, over here in the Discord chat, and if you really want to make sure I get your message, the only way to be 100% sure, 99% sure, is to hit the $ right down here. Hit that $ right down here. Leave me a super chat. Thank you. I'll get these super chats in just a minute. We'll start getting a couple of these super chats, but I will also be taking your questions in the regular chat. 507RC says Hypersmooth makes the videos watchable for non-FPV pilots. Yeah. Josh Hardy wants to know, how's the Hemera treating me? It's treating me bad. Can I just say, let's talk about my Hemera. In case you didn't know, Hemera is it's a hot end for a 3D printer. It's supposed to be like one of the best, especially for flex filament. It's supposed to be one of the best. I put one on my Ender 3 Pro because I am happy with my Sovol. I mean, I would like to put one on my Sovol to make it print better, but I'm happy with my Sovol. So I thought, why screw up a printer? If you've got a printer that's printing good, don't screw it up. Just be like, thank God it's printing good. Don't take apart a good printer to try to make it better. Buy a new printer and then buy a crappy printer and then try to upgrade it. So that's why I upgraded my Ender, because my Sovol is printing good. And I am just struggling to get it to print well. I modified my Cura profile, and it was printing like crap. And finally, long story short, I was like, well, what if it's, because when I went to Teaching Tech's website, and he has some generated G-code files that he generates for you to help tune your printer. And the G-code files from Teaching Tech were printing pretty well, but the files from Cura were printing like crap. So I was like, well, maybe it's my slicer. So I downloaded Prusa Slicer, and sure enough, Prusa Slicer did a much, much better job. But still not printing as good as the Sovol, which is not like I'm having real problems with stringing and retraction, and I just cannot get, like, I'll print a temp tower and I'll find settings in the temp tower that look good. But then when I actually try to do a print, I get real problems with stringing and retraction. It's just not right. And I have no idea what I'm doing wrong. And I feel like I spent, 90 pounds. I spent $100-something on this thing because it's supposed to be the best. And I understand it takes some tweaking to get it right, but I just cannot get it right. And I feel like I really should be able to get it right because it's just objectively a good hot end. Yeah. People in the chat are suggesting changes like the temperature, dried filament, I don't want to, let's not even, because what are we going to do, right? It could be a million things. I've tried a lot of them. Maybe I'll figure it out. But I have to tell you, I've been working on this, so I've been working on this for at least a month. Not like a month solid. Like I have other things going on. But I think I put that hot end on there a month ago and started tuning it and started trying to get it dialed in. And I've been freaking with it for over a month now. And I got to tell you, there's part of me that is just like, I'm just going to buy a Prusa Mark III. But this is how you learn. This is valuable learning experience. And it makes me a better person. So I'm sticking it out. Horny Corn, it's a direct drive. It's a direct drive extruder. It's not, there's no Capricorn tubing. I put it on an E3D. It's a direct drive. Josh Hardy, stop. Don't say that. Josh Hardy says the Chimera is Pandora's box sent by the devil to torment 3D printer enthusiasts. It has to be a good... It has to be good. It's supposed to be the best. I have a whole second one I bought because it's supposed to be like real good. Stop it. Mads Tech is saying anything I tell my Prusa Mark III to do, it just does. Yeah, I just am trying, like, I don't mind messing with this thing and trying to figure out how to get it to work. Like, I appreciate the experience, but part of me feels like I'm just chasing my tail and I'm not learning anything. And in the meantime, there's prints that I need. There's prints I want to be printing and I'm not. So... anyway, I need somebody to tell me that if I buy a Prusa, I'll still have to dick around with it some. And that this is just, yeah. Anyway. Olive oil on the filament. I'm not going to olive oil my filament while I print. That doesn't make any sense. I don't like it. Anyway, let's talk FPV, and let's do that. Let's start by getting some of these super chats out of the way. Thank you guys so much for your generosity in the super chats. Wrong Way FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. Happy Sunday, everybody. Ready to learn something today. Miguel T, thank you for $25 super chat. Roma V2 with DJI or Nazgul V2 with DJI? I'm aware the answer may be coming in your future video. Welcome back. I think the Roma V2... basically, the review of the Roma V2 is coming up on my channel, but like there were a few things that I complained about the Roma V1. One was that the video transmitter wasn't powerful enough. It was only 400 milliwatts. Well, if you're going DJI, then that doesn't really affect you. One was, and the other was the durability. Now, I personally didn't have a problem with the durability of the Roma V1, but many people did. They complained about the top end and the carbon fiber not being strong enough. And it sure looks like Diatone took all of that to heart. Without spoiling the review too much, it's got a 1-watt video transmitter. They upgraded the front end to, like, I think, titanium steel instead of aluminum. They made the front end stronger, and they redesigned the arms to be a little bit thicker where it counts. It's a little heavier than it was. This is about 30 grams heavier than the V1 on my scale. But overall, I feel like the Diatone Roma V2 is just a straight winner in almost every way you can think of. Is it better than the Nazgul V2? I'd have to remind myself the specs of the Nazgul V2, but I think they're very, very comparable. The Roma V2 certainly has more polish. It's got, like, it's a little nicer frame. It's a little, yeah. It comes with, Mike Bergman says that's the worst shade of yellow. It's really kind of a yellowish orange. It comes with white hardware as well, if you prefer, if you want to swap it out. It comes with white. I do agree that's a pretty atrocious color. I would have to look at the price, but Diatone, I might take the Diatone over the V2 over the Nazgul. I'd have to look at the price. Diatone flight controllers are also really, really good. They're very good. ESCs are pretty good. I mean, not that iFlights are bad, but I'd have to look at the price because everything's gotten way more expensive these days. But, yeah, pretty good. Scott Abramacek, Thank you for a $2 super chat. Eat Your Veg FPV. Thanks for a 20-pound super chat. I'm starting my first shark bite build right now, trying to squeeze the new Race VTX in a Nazgul XL5 V5. I'm also the guy having fun with my Chimera on SVO1 on Facebook. You replied to, thanks. My life is full of fun right now. I just feel like something wrong with me that I can't get the Chimera printing well. It's got to be me. It can't be the Chimera. But I just want a GD printer that will GD print well for me. I just need to tick that box. So I should just go buy a Prusa, shouldn't I? I don't like that answer. I don't like that answer. I don't accept that answer. I will struggle through and pay my dues. Fitzflight says, how can iFlight get away with calling their product Nazgul? Isn't that like a trademark term? Yeah, just nobody cares. Nobody notices. Is Chimera just the wrong hot end? Is it just a bad hot end? It can't be. It's from E3D. It's... Anyway. Wolhound FRC, thank you for $5 super chat. I'm stoked I got to join the chat for a few minutes, but I got to bail. Thank you for coming by, Wolhound. Glitch Unicorn, thanks for a $5 super chat. Steady Eddie FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. I use Archer RS receivers with F-port. Can you run a redundant receiver along with it while using F-port, or do I have to be using S-Bus? I believe that S-Bus redundancy is the only one that's supported. I don't think that F-port redundancy is supported, so I think you're out of luck there. DU4 FPV, my Sovol is printing very well. It could print better. I mean, the whole point was that I wanted something that would print better, faster. But for the time being, it's not even printing as good as my freaking stupid Sovol. Darn it. Anyway. Martin Wynn, thank you for a 10-pound super chat. Nice to see you back. Ciati did a good job covering for you. Updated a Crossfire. I got one Crossfire receiver left. Do I put it in a 5-inch Nazgul 5 I never flew, or into a Diatone L3 that definitely smashed 200 feet into the concrete? I mean, I'd probably get that Nazgul going because the Diatone is probably ruined, right? Glitch Unicorn, thank you for a $20 super chat. Thank you guys for being so generous on the super chats. It was fun watching my YouTube revenue go down. Every weekend I didn't do a super chat. My average revenue for the last 28 days went down. So I'm glad to be back for that. Hornycorn says it's not just the hot end, it's the printer. Enders are just crap. I mean, so I've upgraded the Ender with a dual Z-axis and an SKR Mini mainboard. So it's barely an Ender anymore. It's just the frame, which is just extruded aluminum. So even if Enders are crap, this thing's barely an Ender. I mean, I really feel like you learn a lot about a process by solving problems. And so, but I just don't even know if I'm learning anything as long as I've been working on this thing, running in circles, changing parameters. I just don't even know if I'm learning anything. I probably am. Glitch Unicorn says, I can't get all the UARTs to save on my drone. The only one that would save was UART 5. I thought I had the correct order, still nothing. I flashed firmware and nothing. Glitch Unicorn, if your UARTs reset when you hit save and reboot, it means that you have conflicting settings. So let me show you what I mean by that. I can plug a flight controller in here real quick. Let me get Betaflight going. Hang on. So if we go to the ports tab, and for example, here's UART2 with Serial RX enabled. If I also try to put smart audio on that, you can't do that. You can't have two things on the same UART. So when I hit save and reboot, it's going to reset that and not take it. Yeah, so see, now it's reset. And it's just reset the entire screen, hasn't it? Everything. So if you hit save and reboot, it means probably you're trying to put two things on the same UART. Look, smart audio, and telemetry. Can't do that. You can only have one thing on each UART. So you could have Serial RX on UART 1, Smart Audio on or UART 2, etc. So that's probably your problem, Glitch Unicorn. We've got a question here in the regular old YouTube chat. Is the new Fat Shark Scout HD... What? What is that? Oh yeah, Fat Shark made an announcement. Look at this. Fat Shark Scout HD. This is a Fat Shark Scout goggle, 1080p screen with built-in shark bite. Dang. I need to get this. Let me see if Drew wants to send me one of these. Yeah. I need to review this. Does it have analog input? No. Does it have HDMI? No. Basically, it is a SharkBite receiver with a 1080 screen in a Scout form factor. Now, here's the thing, though. Me and Blunty both in our head thought what price was going to be realistic for this. And we both came up with a price of $300 to $350. Because if you think about it, a Fat Shark Scout is like $250, $200 something. A SharkBite receiver is $250. We thought, you could imagine Fat Shark asking $400 or $500 for this, which would be insane. But you could imagine them doing the math and asking it. We both guessed that a price of $300 to $350 we would feel like it was fair. They're coming out at $250, which that's the same price as the SharkBite receiver alone with no screen. So there's no debate that this is a great price for these goggles. But a lot of people are disappointed they don't have an analog receiver built in, because now you're going to need two sets of goggles if you fly analog. 1080 screen, very impressive. Could be good, though. Could be good. No HDMI out, also disappointing. But we have to give Fat Shark credit. They absolutely blew us away. And I'm speaking for Blunty as well, because like I said, we both guessed a price. I think he said $300, I said $350. They blew away our expectations. I think both he and I thought that they would probably come in higher than that. That they would be like, well, it's a $250 module and it's a $200 goggle, and so we're giving it to you for $400. That's a bargain. Well, I think we both thought that they would overprice it, and they didn't. And kudos to Fat Shark for that. Will this be the final price? Unknown. Good point. It could be more expensive, but they have limited stock and it's gonna sell out. So based on that, why would they? I mean, it's not like the original SharkBite where it was like a beta test. It's just a goggle. Tommy's Lazy in the YouTube chat asks, is there any news about Edge TX, specifically the ability to do Crossfire without a hardware mod? Yeah, so once you install Edge TX, you don't need to do the hardware mod on a QX7 anymore. That's just it. There's nothing you need to do other than install Edge TX. It's just built in. If you've already done the hardware mod, that's fine. But if you are buying a QX7 today with the intent of using Crossfire in it, that you have a compelling reason to go with Edge TX, because you don't have to do the hardware mod anymore. There's some people asking on Facebook whether these Fat Shark Scout HD goggles could be used as like a DJI ride-along goggle. And I guess it's not clear because they're both digital, but you can't, only DJI goggles can receive DJI signals. You can't use Fat Shark Scout with DJI, only DJI. So It's Blunty. Are you right? It's Blunty says you might need to switch to 1-bit mode in the menu. Or is it automatic? Good question. I don't know the answer to that. I thought it was automatic. I might be wrong about that. Brighta until I fly in the chat. Hello, Jack. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Brian Ladmero is saying that that is the initial price for the pre-order. Brian, does that mean that you're going to get them for $250 if you buy on the pre-order? Or does that mean that like holds your position in line and then they charge you more? It says that is first batch pricing. You are beta testing. I'm surprised to hear that. Like when Sharkbite came out and they did a beta batch, they called it Bite Frost. I was like, yeah, I get it. This is new hardware, etc. But like, it feels like Fat Shark can make a set of goggles without having to do a beta batch. But I guess that's what people are saying. So if it's $250 for the pre-order beta pricing, then maybe it will be $350, $400. Yeah. I wonder if the final goggles will have HDMI out. Don't know. Bushizi is confirming that the QX7 inverter fix is not automatic in Edge TX. You have to enable it. It's a software option that you enable. The Fat Shark Scout HD does have DVR, the same as the regular Bite Frost system. Sure, Sharkbite system, which Sharkbite. Diego Ramos, thank you for 100 Mexican pesos. Hi, JB. I just started flying. I'm having some trouble getting feedback on what I can do to improve my flights. Any recordings on how I can identify what could be improved? Diego, the number one thing you can do to improve your flying is to get stick time. That's it. I mean, stick time with intent will improve you faster. So you need to think about something you want to be able to do. And maybe in the beginning, that's just like not crash. Work on altitude control. So a great way to work on altitude control is, for example, in the liftoff simulator, there's the car park, the parking garage, as some people call it. That level has a roof and a floor, and it's very narrow, and you can't fly around it if you can't control your altitude. So you need to pick something that you're bad at and work on getting better at it, and then just get stick time, you know? If it's coordinating turns, then just work on turning smoothly around something. Yeah. Scout FPV says, I have a FreeSky X9D Plus. Is there any reason I would want to flash Edge TX right now? No, not really. It doesn't have a touch screen. It doesn't even have a color screen. Basically, none of the things that Edge TX brings to the table today are useful unless you have a color screen radio or a touch screen radio, or maybe if you have a QX7 and you don't want to do the inverter mod. But for the FreeSky X9D Plus, I don't think there's any reason to flash Edge TX today. Go a Mage, thank you for €5. I want a fast flight with sharp corners. Which drone would do this? I mean, it feels like you're describing a racing drone. So if you're going to build your own, I'm a big fan of the Switchback Pro from 533. What's the iFlight racing drone? What's the iFlight one? I can't remember the name. If you want a bind and fly, this iFlight one could be pretty good. Any day now, the webpage will load. Any day now. Somebody in the chat, what's the name of the iFlight 5-inch racing drone? Hello, iFlight. The FT5, is that it? That's the T-Motor FT5, not the iFlight. No, that's not it. iFlight, your web page isn't loading. Well, anyway. 533 Tiny Trainer, good choice if you want a small 3-inch. For sure. Mach R5, that's it. Abraham Gonzalez, thank you. It's the iFlight Mach R5. That's a good choice if you're looking for a ready-to-fly or a bind-and-fly racing drone. Yeah. Huff19 says only Pyro sold it and it's out of stock. That is disappointing, if true. Let's see here. Any opinion on the Halo RC Osiris? Yeah, it's a great lightweight frame. If you want a lightweight freestyle frame, Halo RC Osiris is very good. In fact, there's some news from Halo RC that just came through. Halo RC Osiris, one of the downsides of the Halo RC has been that they sell out of the UK, which for us in the USA is a downside because we have to pay shipping. But Halo RC has just opened a US warehouse. This freestyle frame is very durable for its weight and flies very well. It's not as durable as a heavier frame. But if you're trying to get down, you know, in the like 600 gram 5-inch category, this is a frame to consider. So, Imperious FPV asks, has EdgeTX talked about 500 hertz control polling? I know Ghost users are excited. Yeah, I assume EdgeTX is on that. I don't remember who said it, but someone, I think it was one of the Betaflight devs, said that there is no point in 500 hertz polling until you're doing 12-bit sampling of the sticks. And that is one of the limitations right now, is getting a 12-bit control path from start to finish. Crossfire V3, I think, is going to have a 12-bit control path. Ghost already has one. And EdgeTX, does EdgeTX have 12-bit sampling? Don't know the answer to that. I think that was the argument that was being made, though. If I can, I'm going to try to remember. I think I remember where this message came from. Any day now. Yeah. Chris Thompson, that's who said it. So Chris Thompson said, Betaflight supports 500 hertz, but your ExpressLRS 500 setup isn't working, and generally no one should use 500 hertz ExpressLRS until, oh, so it's 11-bit. I'm sorry about that. Until they get an 11-bit data path. It doesn't have the amplitude range at the moment. So I'm not sure the exact logic here, but Chris Thompson seems to be saying that ExpressLRS doesn't have an 11-bit data path. And so there's not really any point in using 500 hertz until they do. Crossfire V3, I believe, has an 11-bit data path, and Ghost does as well. So, but you asked specifically, does EdgeTX support it? I mean, I would think that they do. Can anybody confirm that EdgeTX does support 500 hertz polling? I think OpenTX does not, but EdgeTX does. So the chat will tell me if I'm wrong. I thought you knew it all. I guess you don't really know everything after all, do you? Ha ha! Dirt Cheap RC 907, thank you for a $5 super chat. Any preference on a flight sim? I've got Velocidrone, but I'm seeing more on Liftoff. Thank you. I would say that for multi-GP style racing, most racers use Velocidrone, and in general, most multi-GP racers seem to prefer Velocidrone. They use Velocidrone to practice. They're on Velocidrone. This is just based on, everybody I know, so it's not a scientific sample. But it seems like they prefer Velocidrone. Obviously, if you're a DRL pilot, you're going to race on DRL, right? That's different than most people, I think, are talking about. I personally fly Liftoff a lot. Liftoff has my house in it. So I kind of like that about it. I think the liftoff physics are pretty good. People often say that the Velocidrone physics are like the best. I don't know. I think all of them are like half decent physics. Yeah, of the commercial sims. What was that sim that Blunty and the AI flight simulator? I haven't thought about that one in a while. Blunty tested this one out, the AI drone simulator. This one, you import your black box log from your flight, and it like makes the AI drone, makes the simulator drone fly like your real drone. And the environments on this one are bonkers large. There's cars and trains and moving things you can test out. You can fly around. And Blunty was really impressed with the physics. So worth, should pick that up. Why have I not got that? I should try that out. Velocidrone just did a new update that has a lot of new features in it as well. I just downloaded that actually last night. Yeah. The name is AI Drone Simulator. Rauk FPV says, I tried the AI drone sim, but I refunded it after about 35 minutes. Why is that, Rauk? Tell us more. Davey FPV asks about Maple wireless Mjolnir antennas for DJI. Let's talk about that. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, it's this. Oh boy, a new antenna set for DJI. Whoopity-doo. Ah, but wait, this one's got something special. Oh, sure it does. Don't they all? What this one does is it's got some kind of combined left and right polarization to try to improve range. And my first thought, and it's got the same thing for the air unit or the Vista, one left, one right polarized. Now, my first thought is this. It is possible to design an RF system that uses cross-polarization to improve throughput. That's a thing that's done, okay? But if the system is not designed to take advantage of cross-polarization in the antennas, then putting cross-polarized antennas on it is unlikely to like just make it better, right? At the best that'll happen is it won't make it worse. So the DJI system ships with left-hand polarized antennas. It's designed for left-hand polarized antennas. If DJI thought that it would be better to use 2 left and 2 right-hand polarized antennas, that's how they would have shipped it. And DJI it's not like DJI's there with their thumb up their butt going, I don't know, how do you make antennas? Do you know how to make antennas? Okay. DJI, they're pretty smart freaking engineers, right? So when I first saw this, I thought, this is marketing hoo-ha. And I'm still somewhat think that. But the person who was talking about these on Facebook sounded like they knew a thing or two about antennas. Like sometimes... Do you remember the Arum Polar antenna from TBS? Some of you remember that debacle. When people talked about that antenna, my BS detector went off. I was like, this is marketing BS. This is not a person who understands this person might understand the underlying physics, but they sure are not communicating about them. This is just marketing BS. When the person on Facebook who I was talking to talked about the Arum Polar, they sounded like someone who knew what they were talking about. And so I thought, So they showed a range test, but the range test was like, it was not, like, it wasn't up to the level of like a Wesley Vardy. Like, you know, Wesley Vardy? He's the guy doing all the range testing. So I asked if they would send a set of these antennas to Wesley Vardy and let him test them. and see like how it comes out. Because he does really rigorous, repeatable tests. He takes his aircraft, he flies it at a certain altitude, in a certain direction. It's very controlled and repeatable. Whereas the tests that I saw of people testing these was like just like a guy flying around his yard. It wasn't super repeatable, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway. So, It's Blunty has some info for us about Express LRS and 11-bit. What is this? Will Express LRS use Crossfire v3? Blunty asks. Express LRS uses Crossfire on the wire, not in the air. Yeah, Crossfire v3. Crossfire doesn't support 11-bit. Yeah, I think we know that. So Express LRS will support 11-bit when Crossfire v3 gets merged. I see. And Crossfire v3 is supposed to be out with firmware 607, right? Anyway. Twin Turbo Stang, thank you for the suggestion about stringing on my Hemera. The Hemera is a direct drive, so there is no Bowden tube. Thank you for the help, though. Baskin FPV says, why is the OSD function on DJI goggles so poor? Baskin, originally, Betaflight didn't really have what Betaflight calls canvas mode, the vector graphics support. The support for it was, I mean, it might have existed, but Caddx says that they are working on canvas mode support. So we'll see if that comes. I thought they pulled 606, not 607. I just flashed 607 last night. If they pulled it like this morning. Is there a bug on 607? Is there a reason they pulled it? Should I go back to 411? Twin Turbo Stang, my Ender has an E3D Hemera on it, which is direct drive. Vampire, thank you for a $5 super chat. Appreciate your donation. Says thank you for your help this week. Dirt Cheap RC, we got you. Artco Drone Solutions, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm an FPV newbie and I'm having trouble binding my QX7. Am I pressing the wrong switch? Artco, without knowing about your like what receiver is in your quad, it's hard to know why it's not binding. That's the number one reason why a FreeSky receiver won't bind is that you have the wrong firmware on it. Artco, you should definitely email me so we can go through this. But it probably has. Twin Turbo Stang, I don't know how many different ways I can say this. I don't have a stock Ender anymore. I put the Hemera on my Ender, and that is what's having the stringing issues. It's Blunty. I see. It's Blunty is pointing out they pulled 607 from Agent X, but you can flash it using Agent M, and that's what I did. Pete Buttons, why would asking newbie questions be weird? This is the perfect place to ask newbie questions. That's pretty much my bread and butter. Yeah, in TBS Agent X, you cannot see past 411. In TBS Agent M, you can. What's the best drone at $200, no matter bind and fly or custom build? Well, that is a tough question because, for example, let's look at the iFlight Nazgul V2, which is one of the best bind and fly drones you can get. in stock for $219. I guarantee you that price is not going to hold after this sells out. That is pricing from, you know, whatever, 4 months ago when they ran this batch, or 6 months ago, or whenever. However long it's going to take this batch to sell out. Because everything's more expensive right now. Electronics are more expensive. Here's the Diatone Roma F5 V2. Hang on, let me find a... Do they have it? I guess they don't. I don't see it on Get FPV, but $270. The Diatone Roma F5 V1 was comparable in price to the Nazgul V2. They were very comparable in price. Not exactly the same, but pretty close. The Nazgul V2, $220. The Roma V2, $270. And a lot of that, in my opinion, is because components are more expensive right now. So if you're looking for a bind and fly, right now, the Nazgul 5, you cannot justify the price of the Diatone Roma F5 over the Nazgul today. They're very comparable in their specs. The Nazgul has a 1-watt video transmitter. Does it have an F7? It has an F4 flight controller, not an F7. So, okay. But they're very, very comparable in almost every way. There's certainly not a $50 difference between them. But I guarantee you that when the next batch of Nazguls comes out, and probably what they're going to do is they're not going to make this one anymore. They're going to make one that's slightly different, and it's going to be $270 or something. Because, like, all of the electronic components that go into the ESC and the flight controller are 3 times as expensive as they used to be. Or something. I don't know. I mean, it varies. But talking to people in the industry, and I don't just mean the FPV industry, I just mean the electronics industry. Things like the microprocessor, the MCU, things like voltage regulators and MOSFETs for the ESC, they are at least 2 or 3 times as expensive as they were a year ago. And that's going to make everything get more expensive. So today, you're looking for a 5-inch bind and fly? This is a great choice. This is a really good quad. It's very good. It's actually as good or better than anything you could build for that same price. In fact, on the Nazgul V1, I spec'd out the price of the individual parts, and it was $24 cheaper to buy the bind and fly. They're giving you the bind and fly at a discount compared to buying the parts separately. So that's the one to get today. Well, you know, let's just throw an affiliate link in the chat. It's not in stock. Are you sure? Oh, well, fuck, you know, F me. Are you sure it's not in stock? Oh, well, I'm just look like an idiot then, don't I? Oh, shut up. Oh. Oh. Oh, really? Okay. It said in the Google search results that it was in stock. No, okay. Well, no, it's not in stock. Oh well. That whole talk was, I guess it wasn't completely useless, but there you go. It's not in stock. Is this Roma also plug and play? Yeah, it is. There you go. Point made. Well, if you can find it in stock for $220, it's $220 with no receiver. It's $250 with a receiver. That's a hell of a deal. If you can find it in stock anywhere, it's a great quad, but it may not exist. So this is the world we live in, guys. Like, there was a time when you could get a Nazgul for $200 and it was just like such a no-brainer. It was such a no-brainer, but everything's more expensive today. I bought... Where's my order? No. I don't know. I bought some of them. Do you think prices and electronic shortages will be resolved anytime soon? No. This is not me making any predictions, but people I talk to who know things about the electronics industry seem to say that it's at least into 2022 before we'll see any relief. And maybe the end of 2022. Nazgul Evoke is the next one. So yeah, the next thing that iFlight is putting out is the Nazgul Evoke. $300. There you go. That's what I'm saying. No, let's see. No RX, $300. Same price. Yeah. And if you look at the, like, what's it got? What are the specs? Oh my God, with an F4. Oops. That's too bad. Yeah, the Zingy motors are better than the Toa motors, probably. It's a shame it's got an F4. That's going to really hurt them. I mean, from the user perspective, you'll never know the difference. Oh, ouch. No, 600, boop. Nope. Sorry. iFlight. You dropped the ball on this one. 600 milliwatt VTX and an F4 processor and $300. Diatone Roma F5 V2, 1 watt video transmitter, F7 processor, $270. Nope. I don't. The Nazgul is that's a big ask. So what are you getting with the Nazgul? Is the frame better? Debatable. Is the camera better? Maybe. Don't know. Flight controller on the Diatone is got Wi-Fi on it. The iFlight motors, I mean, these Toka motors are decent. They look really nicely made. They've had some durability issues with the spokes. So I would say the iFlight motors are probably better, but I feel like $270 for the Diatone Roma F5 V2 versus $300 for the Nazgul Evoke. That seems like a no-brainer. The Diatone wins to me. I haven't even seen the Evoke, so... Is there an F7 option at the bottom of the page? Hold on. It says F4. Where's the F7? Oh, it says F7. Okay. Why does it say F4 up here, though? That may be a typo. Is the VTX 1 watt? No, 600 milliwatts. So still 600 milliwatt VTX and $30 more. Still the Diatone wins. Isaac M says the Nazgul 5V2 is in stock at Race Day Quads. Bind and fly. Ooh, $200. In stock for 4S. Is it not 6S? Oh, dang. So you can get the plug and play with 2750 kV motors. Here's an affiliate link. Enjoy. It's an F4 ESC, Blunty says. Are they making ESCs with F4 processors on them now? That's weird. Why would they do that? That's a really... So the ESC is F4. See, I saw F4 power stack, and I assumed the flight controller was an F4. No, look, it says Success Mini F4 flight controller. It's just a typo. It's got to be a typo, because they say F7 down here. Race Day Quads does have the 6S XM Plus. There you go. So there you go. That's the cheapest, best value 5-inch you can buy in America today. And when it goes out of stock, it's going to be gone forever. Thank you, It's Blunty, for that clarification. I don't see how you can charge $300 for this when you could get a Diatone Roma F5 V2 for $270. Is it $270 or $279? 270. That to me, I sold out there. That to me is a no-brainer win for Diatone. It's not in, if you can find it in stock, I guess. Okay. Jim Sanders, thank you for a $5 super chat. Do batteries need to be close to the same voltage when storage charging? Jim, the fact that you're asking about batteries being close to the same voltage makes me think you're parallel charging. And yeah, anytime you're parallel charging, the batteries need to be at the same voltage when you plug them into the parallel board. So whether you're storage charging or whatever, anytime you're parallel charging, at the moment you plug in, they need to be near the same voltage or you'll have a bad time. OGK Kid says his new Nano Diversity won't go into bind mode. You like literally you plug it in, you push the bind button, it doesn't go into binding mode. I have to contact Crossfire TBS support about that. I mean, I suspect something else is going on, but I can't really guess what it would be. After like 30 seconds or a minute, I think the Crossfire won't go into bind mode, so you may need to power cycle it, and then soon after powering up, press the bind button, but it should just immediately go into binding mode at that point. Anyway, there you go. Let's see here. Radiomaster TX16S versus the Eachine TX16S. Good question. The Eachine TX16S is an authorized sort of clone. It's official. Like Radiomaster worked with the Eachine on this. I haven't heard anybody suggest otherwise. So I assume it's official. Like I didn't ask Radiomaster for a statement, but nobody, if this wasn't authorized, then they'd be screaming. So I'm going to guess that Eachine OEM'd with Radiomaster to make this. Pricing, very comparable. That's pretty comparable to a Radiomaster. Like you used to be able to get a TX16 Hall effect for like $110. See what I'm saying? Everything's more expensive. What does this have that the Radiomaster doesn't? What's different about it? Like I'm looking. Blah, 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 blah. Eachine airplane model presets. Okay, that's fine if you fly Eachine airplanes, but that's not really relevant. It's got stick travel limiter. Oh yeah, that's new. So there's these screws here are used to limit the stick travel if you don't want the full travel. That's not unique to Eachine though. Radiomaster has that too. So what has the Eachine got that the Radiomaster doesn't other than the Eachine logo? I don't see anything really. I don't see anything that this has. MPFPV, the Radiomaster has that as well right now. I mean, I don't know. Like somebody who just posted on Facebook, hey, I just got the Radiomaster. What are these screw holes? So you're not going to see it in these photos. Let's see if we can. But the Radiomaster is shipping with that same thing. Okay, so like I wouldn't be sure I was going to get the upgraded gimbals if I ordered this today. Maybe it's only the Max. Does the Max? I think they just haven't updated the photos. I swear I saw on Facebook today somebody saying, I ordered a Radiomaster TX16S, what are these screw holes? And somebody else said that's the upgraded gimbal. So I mean, it looks fine. It's basically just a TX16S Max, or a TX16S rather. I don't know of any differences between them. Like, are there some plastic parts instead of metal parts or something? I couldn't say. It looks pretty much the same, though. So, if it's in stock, snap it up. Jim Sanders, thank you for another $5 super chat. The best way to test things without wiring up, like camera, flight controller, etc., etc. How do you supply the correct voltage? You could have a power supply like the P200 from frickin' Toolkit RC makes a P200 power supply. I did a review of it. It has adjustable voltage and it's reasonably priced. Like, as power supplies go, you should watch my full review of the P200. It's right for some people. And I use it to supply like 5 volts on the bench. So, that's what I use. Silk Freeway asks, hey JB, when I power up my quad, the motors don't beep in sync. Is this a problem? Everything works fine, but the beeps aren't together. So here's why the beeps aren't in sync. When you first power up, the ESC makes its initialization tones, and it won't start making the initialization tones until it has validated the incoming throttle signal. Because the ESC does, like, it has to detect, is this D shot? Is it multi-shot? Is it one shot? Is it PWM? And once it detects the signal, it interprets it, and then it will do the initialization tones. Especially if you're using bidirectional D shot, that takes a little bit longer sometimes. And especially if you're using D shot 600, the signal can be just a little bit less stable, and therefore it can take longer to initialize. So if the initialization tones are slightly out of sync, it doesn't mean anything. What you should do is you should, assuming that you're using bidirectional D-Shot, go to the Motors tab in Betaflight Configurator and see that you have 0% errors. Spin the motors. Don't just, like, with the motors idle. Take your props off, spin the motors in the Motors tab, and if you spin the motors up and down and you still see 0% errors, you probably are fine. If it really bothers you, what you should do is you should go down one D-Shot. So if you're using D-Shot 600 and they're not synced up, go down to D-Shot 300 and they'll probably be fine. But as long as you have 0% errors, it doesn't really matter. It's Blunty is showing a comparison. Thank you, Blunty. Basically, all they've done is move the buttons. They've changed the buttons slightly and moved the button. Changed these buttons, the sys and the model button, and then move these down. The ergonomics looks slightly different. And we can see that the Eachine has these adjustable gimbal stops here. But I believe that the Radio Master is also shipping with the gimbal stops, depending on where you order it from. Like, I couldn't promise you that you're going to get it if you buy it today, but at least some people are getting new Radio Masters with these same gimbals. So, let's see here. Mr. Stubbs in the Discord. Thank you for being a patron, Mr. Stubbs. If you guys want to join Mr. Stubbs and the other wonderful folks over on my Discord server, you can join my Patreon for as little as $2 a month or more if you feel like I've earned it. I say think of it like a busker on the subway, but not one of those annoying buskers who plays crappy music. A really good one. You're going to work, you're going down to the subway station, you're like, what is that? What is that song? Oh my God, this guy's amazing. And then he helps you troubleshoot your quad, and there's a hat or a guitar case. And you throw a couple bucks in the guitar case, and then you get on with your life. That's what my Patreon is like. If you join the Patreon, link in the video description below, you can hang out on my Discord server. So, yeah. Mr. Stubbs asks, I just built this little guy. All I did was put the receiver in, and now I don't get motor beeps. Well, I hate to say it, Mr. Stubbs, but something else has changed. Like, all you meant to do was put the receiver in, but now something's effed up. So a solder ball got where it shouldn't go. You got to tear it apart, and you got to look at it and figure out, like, if you don't have motor beeps, the ESC got messed up somehow. So if you just soldered a new receiver in, chances are while you were soldering the receiver in, some solder got where it shouldn't have got, and now the ESC is messed up. So, sorry, I wish I could give you better news. Cycling Mikey, thanks for £4 in the Super Chat. Super Chat's also a fine way to support me. I appreciate every one of them. You don't get access to the Patreon, to the Discord, though, for Super Chats. Sorry. The ESC won't start up if not getting signal from the receiver, says Lincoln Ferguson FPV. I hate to disagree, but that's just wrong in every way. With all due respect, that was dumb. No, sorry. No, the ESC will absolutely go doot. If the ESC gets power and has motors, it doesn't even need a flight controller, and it will go doot. And then the flight controller will send motor signal to the ESC, doot, even if there's no receiver. So, like, literally nothing you said was correct. Good intent. Thanks for trying to be helpful. But, no. Sorry, man. Okay, good. He's taking it with a sense of humor. Joshua McBride says, when I power up my quad, I get video in my goggles, but once the XM Plus kicks in, I lose video. Please help. Normally, Joshua McBride, I would say that that's telemetry related, but the XM Plus doesn't have telemetry. So, man, I don't know what it could be. I really don't. I don't know, man. Like, I would just have to start pulling things apart because I really don't know where to start with that. RC Addict asks, how important is it to have a capacitor on the gnarly FPV subatomic? The battery goes from 4.2 to 3.7 volts soon after takeoff. The capacitor will not prevent that kind of voltage sag. A capacitor smooths out very fast high-frequency voltage spikes. It doesn't smooth out sag like that. I mean, if you had a ginormous capacitor, in theory it could, but the ones we use don't do that. So if the battery sags, it's because your battery C rating is too low or it's damaged. Ooh, Nick Sebring with the clutch. Nick Sebring is suggesting that the XM Plus is causing pit mode to kick in. So when you first power up and your controller is turned off, you're just in failsafe and pit mode is set, just happens to be on. And then as soon as you start up the XM Plus, the controller, your aux channel kicks it into pit mode. That's really good. That's good troubleshooting, Nick Sebring. Thank you for that. Joshua McBride, does your flight controller have a built-in pit switch for the VTX? That would explain what you're happening. That's a good one, Nick Sebring. I was not going to get that. Blue Cheese DK, thank you for 100 Danish kroner. Thank you so much. No question, just... Ostron FPV wants to know, what's your opinion of a frame design where the battery is placed in the middle of the frame so that in the crash the battery won't come off? Like, I've seen frames like this before, and the problem is that, like, the battery still smashes into things. It just smashes into the frame. So I'm not sure there's a big advantage to it. It helps protect the battery, but then where do your electronics go? You end up with a much less compact frame because the electronics have to go somewhere. And in some cases, depending on how the frame is designed, the battery moves in a crash and damages the electronics. So I'm not convinced there's a real benefit to that type of design for like 5-inch size quads. Lewis wants to know if the QX7 mod breaks the ACCST protocol. It does not. Not at all. WA says that when he tries to arm his quad, the quad hops up and then powers down. You have a runaway problem. Here is the full troubleshoot for a runaway problem. Hang on, wait for it. Wait for it. Boom. So this is how to troubleshoot the problem that you're describing, where when you arm, the quad jumps up in the air and then disarms itself. And you need to pause the video and screenshot this. Okay? Pause the video and screenshot this, and then go fix your problem. That's the answer. All right, I'm going back. Wickline72 says, when building an X8, if one ESC dies, would it kill power to the flight controller? Depends entirely on how the flight controller is wired. I would guess that both of the ESCs would be passing power to the flight controller. The thing is, if an ESC dies, it typically still passes through power to the flight controller because there's not like a voltage regulator or anything. It's just literally a trace goes through the ESC. So usually, even if the ESC dies, the flight controller will still be powered up. Thank you, Shrey Gupta, for 100 rupees. Just want to say thank you for your work towards the community. Thank you, Shrey Gupta, for your donation. OCFPV says, I was getting insane video noise on my new 5-inch 6S build. Multiple capacitors didn't fix it, so I added a 12-volt BEC to power my VTX. This decreased the noise, but it's still pretty bad. Yeah, the problem is that you have something wrong with your electronics, and by slapping capacitors on it, you're just putting bandages on a broken leg. So now you can kind of limp on this broken leg, but you still haven't fixed the problem. The number one thing that causes rampant video noise is that your motor screws are too long and they're touching your motor windings. So that is the first thing to check. And everybody says, oh, no, I checked that. It's fine. And what they mean is they went, that looks good. Ideally, you would measure with a multimeter, test for continuity between the motor screw and the ESC pad. Another thing you can do is just back your motor screws out like a full turn. Don't fly like that, but just spin the motors on the bench with the props off and see if that fixes it. You could put a washer on the screws to back them off a little. Basically, if the screws extend above the motor base at all, you could have this problem. And people say, no, but look, I can see it's not touching. Yeah, but where the wires exit the motor is another place it can happen. Everybody overlooks that. Yeah, it could be the motor leads, not just the windings. It could be the windings too. John Coopy wants to know, what analog goggle is your daily driver these days? These days, my daily driver is the Orcas. One thing I like about the Orcas is that they can record audio on the DVR, so I have a microphone on them, and it can record my voice, which helps. I don't use the audio most of the time, but it just helps with syncing up the video, and sometimes it's good backup audio. Eirik Toft says in the Discord, I always use screws that don't quite make it to the top of the motor base. Same here. I prefer my motor screws to not quite make it out the top of the base if I can. In some cases, they may extend just the tiniest bit, like a 0.5 millimeter. But if they extend more than like a millimeter, you could have this problem. And it's not guaranteed that it'll happen from the beginning. You could have motor screws that are sticking out of the motor sticking out of the motor base, and they're touching the wires like right here where the wires exit the motor. And at first it's fine. And then over time they cut through and you start getting the problem. Diatone has been really smart. Diatone has done two smart things here. You can't see this, I don't think, but they've added a plastic skirt to the motor to keep the screws from touching the wires. And the place where the wires exit the motor is right in between where the screws come up, so the screws aren't likely to touch. It's very good touches there. MPFPV says, is plugging in more packs while other packs are already charging on a parallel board a bad idea? I do that when the difference is more than 0.1 volt for cells, so I let some of them charge to get the voltage closer, then plug in the rest. MPFPV, what you're doing is an advanced move, but if done correctly, there is no problem. So if you have a battery that's at 3.85 volts and a bunch of batteries that are at 3.75 volts, you can put the 3.75 volts on the parallel charge board, start the charge cycle, and then when the charger gets up to 3.85, you plug in the 3.85 volt battery. Yes, that's fine. Everything about parallel charging is a balance of risk versus reward, right? Imagine it's risk versus reward. I'm not going to give that example. That'll probably get me demonetized. Everything is risk versus reward. Okay? So if you follow the guidelines, then parallel charging is 100% safe. Every situation where someone has had a fire and then Johnny 5 comes out of the woods and says, parallel charging strikes again, it is always that the person doing the parallel charging did not follow the safety procedures. You say, well, okay, that doesn't change the fact. Yeah, it's definitely more dangerous. So if you do that, it's fine. I mean, don't screw it up, but it's fine. As long as you just do it safely. Don't plug in a new pack while the charger is running, says Big Data Pimp. The thing is, Big Data Pimp, if the new pack is at the same voltage as the rest of the board, you absolutely can plug it in. There's no downside to doing that. As long as you're sure that the voltage matches up, it's fine. The problem is that people don't understand how parallel charging works. They don't fully internalize how to do it safely, and then they get in trouble and they light a fire. And there's an argument to be made that if something is so complicated that you have to freaking study and then maybe you just shouldn't do it. Yeah, completely valid. You would be surprised at the number of people who just throw their batteries on a parallel charge board, says Mo. Yeah. The community needs a video that explains it simply. Yeah, I made that video years ago, Mo. I made the video years ago. It's out there. I mean, it's a years old video. Maybe nobody's watching it, but... Dennis Gerber, thank you for a $10 super chat. Any tips for getting solder out of narrow gaps on a board? I dripped a bit of solder on my ESC, and it is bridging capacitors that are super close together. Good news, Dennis Gerber. When there are a row of capacitors super close together on an ESC, it is almost always the case that they are already in parallel. So your solder that's bridging them is not actually changing anything electrically. You're probably fine. How to get the solder out? Probably like solder wick is the way to do it. I honestly don't know. It may be really difficult, but probably you're fine on this one. You probably lucked out. CGK of PV wants to know, is it bad to start charging packs at a voltage higher than 3.8-ish volts? Doesn't matter, CGK. As long as... It doesn't matter. If you're charging individual packs, just start the charge cycle and go. If you're charging parallel board, as long as they're all at the same voltage when you plug them into the board, then you're fine. Ho Operator, thank you for a $5 super chat. I ripped the motor wires out of my Cyber Zing. I can't find the same KV. Any suggestions on repairing? Ho Operator, soldering back together the wires after you've ripped them out is unlikely to succeed for most people. It's not that it couldn't be done. Most people would probably need to rewind the motor entirely to make that work. And that also, rewinding brushless motors for these little cheap motors, like you can find people on TikTok and they're rewinding motors and they're these giant, big, expensive DC motors. Like, obviously, then it's worth the labor to rewind it. But for a little mini quad motor, unless you just love rewind, like if you love cross stitch, if you love knitting sweaters, okay, well, you're probably going to love rewinding motors, so go for it. But if you ripped the wires out of a motor, probably repairing them, soldering them back on is unlikely to work, and repairing it would be a full rewind. So you're probably out of luck there. AZ Dean, thank you for a $2 super chat. Eric LaPlante, thank you for a $5 super chat. What's your advice for traveling with quads? What's the best way to pack lipos, and what should I expect when going through TSA screening? So Eric LaPlante, traveling with quads is not as big a deal as people think it is. You must carry your batteries onto the plane. Do not check your batteries, because if there's a fire, they want the fire to be in the cabin, not in the cargo hold, so they can deal with it. So don't check the batteries. The batteries need to be less than 100 watt hours. For perspective, that's a 5S 5,000 milliamp hour battery. All of your mini quad batteries they're probably around 20 to 25 watt hours, so you're fine. There is no limit on the number of batteries as long as each battery is under 100 watt hours. The batteries should be at storage voltage. They're not going to check that, but for safety reasons, you'd rather they be at storage voltage because they're less likely to have a fire, and the fire will be less energetic if you have a fire. Ideally, they should be in a separate case so that when the TSA wants to look at them, you could easily take them all out. In my experience, TSA always swabs the batteries to see if they have explosive residue on them, and then it's no big deal. They just let them through. So that's the advice. And don't bring your tools. Check your tools if you're doing a checked bag. Don't try to bring, technically tools under 7 inches are okay to take on a plane. So technically you could take screwdrivers, hex drivers, obviously not blades, not knives or anything. But I just check my tools because I don't want to take a risk on getting them confiscated. Have all the batteries in a single bag. Take the bag out, run it through. They'll might say, what is this? You say, they're batteries for my drone. They'll swab it. You're good to go. At least that's my experience. Crunk says, I have TSA pre-check, and they always just go, drone, and send me through. Yeah, I also, I don't know if my pre-check is still valid, but I used to have TSA pre-check back when I was flying a lot for my job. And they would just let you through sometimes if you were TSA pre-check. Stephen Covington says, you can't have the batteries as a carry-on. No, Stephen, that is backwards. You must carry the batteries on. You cannot check the batteries in your checked luggage. They do not want a fire in the cargo compartment. Stinger Swarm used to be an airline pilot, and what he says is in the cargo compartment, there is a fire extinguishing system. It's one shot. Once they fire it, if the Lipo keeps the fire going, now the plane is on fire and you're screwed. So if there is a fire, they want the fire to be in the passenger compartment, not the cargo. You must carry the batteries on. Okay. Kush 11, thank you for 10 Canadian dollars. Silly question. Any advice or tips on packing cubes for your FPV bags? Yeah, here's what I use. You're gonna laugh about how expensive these are, but you asked, so this is I'm gonna tell you. This is what I use. It's freaking amazing. These are such good bags. Think Tank Cable Management 2.0. It's like $20 for a single bag, but they're really good. There's probably cheaper stuff out there that isn't as good, like makeup bags or something. But these are what I use. Here's the 2.20, and then there's a big one. There's a bigger one like this. They're really, really nice. Are the batteries affected by cabin pressure? No, not in any way. Okay. Ho Operator, thanks for another $5. Rui Pedro, thanks for €5. Rui has a Tadpole 3-inch with 1204 5000 kV motors on 3S. It wobbles a little on throttle up and when I release the throttle. Rui, without seeing video of the exact nature of the wobble, it's tough to give you any advice as to what might be going wrong. If it's wobbling when you drop the throttle, it's not like P-term oscillation. Rui, I would, if you can send like in Messenger or something, send me a link to a video. I would really need to see it. Huff19 asks, is there any update on the availability of the updated arms for your JB frame? Do you mean the arms with the horns on them? I don't know if they've even made those. I don't know if they even made those, to tell you the truth. That's the bind and fly version. Here's the frame. Frame is back ordered. Where's the spare parts? I don't think they made them. I don't think they ever made them. I don't know. They were like gonna make them. I don't think they made them. I don't know if they're gonna. So there's your answer. He says the flight controller on the Tadpole is already soft mounted. I mean, yeah, it would definitely need to be soft mounted. Anthony DiStefano, thank you for a $5 super chat. What are the steps to do if you have a puffy lipo? What's the most dangerous? So if your lipo is puffy, but the internal resistance is good, don't worry too much about it. If I would go based off the internal resistance. You should have a general sense of what the internal resistance of a battery is when it's new. Like if you really wanted to be detail oriented, you could write them down, but most people don't do that. But like when I get a brand new 6S 1100 milliamp hour, maybe the internal resistance is about 7 to 10 milliohms, right? If I have one that's gotten a little puffy for some reason, and I check the internal resistance and it's up around 18 or 20 milliohms, I'm like, oh, this one's, even if it's like not going to just explode, it's just going to have bad performance. So, yeah. Internal resistance is what tells me whether it's time to get rid of a puffy lipo. Resistance is in ohms. I said milliohms, right? Milliohms are ohms. I'm so confused. There you go. Do you have a test plan for the HGLRC Recon 4? Do I? Did they send me that quad? Did they? Did I review that quad? I vaguely think I remember. I got the Reckin with the 18650. I vaguely think they sent me that quad, but I can't find it in my pile of quads that people sent me that I'm not reviewing because I'm a terrible person. How much resistance is too much, asks Buzzkill. Buzzkill, the internal resistance of a cell depends on the size. So the bigger the cell, the lower the internal resistance is going to be. What you need to do is compare the internal resistance of one cell when it's new versus when it's older. Or compare the resistance of similar size and C rating cells. And then see which ones are better. So there is no universal answer. The lower the resistance, the better the performance of the battery is going to be. If you do have a puffy Lipo, don't charge it at 5C. That's the bottom line. Now Buzzkill's asking the important questions. The other thing to look for is if you have one cell with a much higher internal resistance or a much lower internal resistance, that's a red flag. So Buzzkill says, what if I have one cell that's 19 milliohms and the rest are all 6? That battery is, get rid of it. It's done. That's a situation, and high or low is bad because a battery could have an internal short that lowers its internal resistance, or it could have like other damage that increases its internal resistance. The thing is, if you have one cell at 19 milliohms and the rest are at 6, that cell is the one that's going to spontaneously light on fire in the middle of a charge cycle, and you're not going to see it happening because it's in the middle of the pack, and so you don't notice it getting hot. That battery, I would get rid of it 100%. The thing is, like, oh, I hate to get rid of a battery just because it's got one bad cell. It's get rid of it, because that cell is going to end up down at 3.0 volts anyway when the rest of the cells are at 3.6. That cell that's like saying, you know, 3 of the tires on my car are fine. It's only the 4th one that's flat. So I'm good to go, right? I hate to not go on this car trip just because I have one flat tire. If you have a battery with one bad cell, get rid of it. Martin Wynn, thank you for £2 super chat. Willow, it is time to go to bed, Willow. What do you mean, bed? It's only... you must be in Europe. Willow, it's bedtime. I know you're enjoying the live stream, but it's bedtime. I'll still be here. You can DVR it tomorrow, Willow. How do you hook up the Crossfire 69 to use with TBS MyVTX? Hobo Sakis, the 69 is all ready to go with TBS MyVTX. There's no wiring you have to do. It's all wired up internally. It should just work. Boom. Easy question. Easy answer. Can you use bidirectional D-Shot on the Diatone Roma F5 V2? So interestingly, they ship it with bidirectional off, which makes no freaking sense to me, but it flies pretty good. What ESC is on here, I guess, is the big question. Let me get my smoke stopper because I don't want to plug in with power on. Hang on. With the props on, rather. Come here, battery. Okay. What ESC is on here? Let's take a look, and let's just see if it works. All right, so smoke stopper. The smoke stopper will save me if the props try to spin up. The freaking ESC music is not standard either. That's interesting. Let's go, boys. Let's go. There we go. So it ships with bidirectional off, which was surprising to me. Let's try turning bidirectional on. We'll save and reboot and see what happens. And we go to the motors tab. Yep, it's working. So you can use bidirectional D-shot. It is interesting that we're getting a little bit of errors. Not very much, though. I think, has it always been 3 digits here? Has I didn't change the configurator version, so I guess not. Yeah, we're getting a tiny, tiny amount of error percent, but not very much. It is interesting whenever that's not 0, but it does work. Bidirectional D-shot does work. So why didn't Diatone ship it with bidirectional enabled? That's so weird. They ship it with a custom PID tune and custom filter set. Oh. Diatone. What secrets are you hiding? Why would you lower the D-term filter multiplier and not have bidirectional D-shot enabled? That's pretty weird. What does Diatone know that we don't know? I don't know. Anyway, it does work. It does work. Now let me go turn this off before I screw up something about the quad in my review. Yeah, their tune is... This is really weird. Like, if we look at their PID tune, like, they've turned the sliders off, so we can't really just go, oh, here's the sliders. Really low pitch I gain, which this is a true X configuration, so I don't know why the I gain on pitch would be so low. And their D gains are super low. Their P gains are not super high. Bidirectional, I turned it off. No. Bidirectional D-shot, yeah, it's saved. It's all good, Crunked. We wouldn't have had an error percent if bidirectional D-shot was off. Yeah, this tune is pretty weird. The P gains are... I mean, I guess for a bind and flag, you don't want, like, absolute ragged edge PIDs, because somebody's going to fly it on messed up props and smoke something. But it is super weird to me that the I gain is so low on pitch, but not the P gain. Like, if you're going to have a super low I gain on pitch, that's going to be something to do with your weight distribution. But then that would also affect the P gain, and the P gain is pretty symmetrical between pitch and roll. Yeah, that's a really weird PID tune. And the filter settings, anytime I see a filter slider below 1.0, I think that the frame is messed up. So, I don't know. A little weird. But you can, and in my opinion, you probably should. Anyway. Jelly McG says, I got an Eachine trash can. I put an XT30 connector on it. Now it won't power on without being connected to the PC via USB. What has happened? I have heard of people putting XT30 connectors on these little flight controllers, and the reduced resistance of the XT30 allows bigger voltage spikes to come through, which then results in you frying the flight controller. If a flight controller won't power up except from USB, it usually means the 5-volt regulator has died. Penguins Can Fly, thank you for €5. Penguins Can Fly points out that the iFlight dump file for the Nazgul V5 also doesn't use bidirectional D-shot. Any explanation? I mean, I don't know what their logic is. Obviously, a quad can fly very well with no bidirectional D-shot, but it's probably going to fly better with bidirectional D-shot and tuned around that. In general, bidirectional doesn't make things worse. If all you do is turn bidirectional on and nothing else, then the quad will fly a little bit worse. You have to reduce the other filters, but bidirectional lets you do that. Ira Toft says the Roma F5 V2 flies great. I built it with my own parts, but I think the frame is great. I also think it's a good frame, so I'm kind of confused as to why they're delivering the PID tune the way that they are. So, it's pretty weird. When will the Nebula Pro be back in stock, says Dirty Pleasure. Dirty Pleasure, I don't want to name names, but some people who are talking to Caddx are hearing the end of August, but we'd have no way of knowing whether that's true. Because I've seen situations where a vendor says, oh yeah, we're going to have your shipment out at the end of August. And then it's September and the shipment still hasn't come. And they're like, oh yeah, no, end of September for sure this time. And then it's November and it's, you know, so who knows? But that's what Caddx is saying today. Joey Zoom says enabling bidirectional D-Shot causes my CPU usage to skyrocket. Yeah. Yep. You have to reduce, you have to go from 8K down to 4K if you have an F4 processor. If you have an F7 processor, you should be good to go. Baskin FPV says maybe Kalman filter is better than bidirectional D-Shot. Oh, Lord, let's do that. Let's do that whole argument again. I mean, I feel like it's pretty obvious that a targeted notch filter is able to do a better job than a low-pass filter. And if you start with this nonsense that Kalman is not a low-pass filter, it's a predictive state estimation algorithm. Shut up, it's a low-pass filter. Oh, no, I know, it's not, but but it is. At least the way it's implemented in, well, Helio, Butterflight, and I believe Emu Flight. I believe it reduces to effectively a low pass. I'm pretty sure that UAV Tech demonstrated that with real gyro data, that basically the Kalman filter is a low pass. So there's no question that a targeted notch filter is going to do a better job at filtering, assuming that it is correctly targeting the correct frequencies, that you can get more filtering with less latency with a targeted notch filter. There's no question that it's going to do better than a low pass. Oh, say his name, and he comes out of the woodwork. UAV Tech is here. There we go. Eric LaPlante, thank you for a $5 super chat. Thanks for releasing the Pin.io vids. Extremely helpful. The recording on Naked Hero 6 works great. I mapped it to my momentary button on my Tango 2. That's a great idea. Big Oily Guy, thanks for a $5 super chat. Every time you fly, it's a Rotor Risco. You got to balance the Rotor Risco with the Rotor Rewardo. That's for sure. Nicholas Ream says, it's low pass, but with less phase loss, so it's not low pass. Nicholas, I'll let UAV Tech weigh in, because he actually knows this shit, and I'm just talking out my ass. But my understanding is that there is a simplified Kalman filter that basically the way they've implemented the Kalman filter leaves out one of the parameters, and so it's basically reduces to a low pass. That was my understanding. That the Kalman filter, as implemented in Butterflight and Heliospring, and then I think also Emu, although I'm not 100% sure that Emu carried that forward, that it wasn't actually a Kalman filter because they like left part of it out, and that it reduced, they just left that knob turned to 0 and it basically turned into a low pass. So a properly fully implemented Kalman filter would not be a low pass, but the way they did it, it basically worked out to a low pass. UAV Tech confirms same phase delay when at the same cutoff. Thank you, UAV Tech. Filters are a black art, says Baskin FPV. Actually, they're not. Because, you should always be suspicious of someone who says, it's a black art, it's a mystery. That person is not an expert. Respectfully. When I go to my mechanic and I say, man, there's this clunking noise, can you fix it? I don't want him to go, I don't know, man, cars are a black art. Just kind of a mystery. Who can figure out why cars do what they do? Well, I'm not hiring you as my mechanic. When I go to my mechanic and I say, man, my car's doing this weird thing, he's going to be like, okay, let me get the ODB machine out. I'm going to check your codes. I'm going to, yep, you need a blah, blah, blah. And then he's going to fix it. There are people out there who understand filters, who have the language to talk about and analyze and explain filters, who have the tools to evaluate what a filter is doing, to evaluate an application and decide what kind of filter will work better. Those people exist. Anyone who says, oh, filters are a black art, either they don't understand it or they are not capable of explaining it to you. And that's okay. There are lots of people in FPV who kind of don't know what they're talking about and are just doing their best to help people have a good experience. Sometimes I'm one of them. I'll be the first to admit and I'll try to be honest when I'm speaking as an expert and when I'm kind of just making things up and we're all muddling through this together. When I talk about 3D printing, I don't represent myself as an expert. I say, look, I'm just going to try and, document the process of muddling through this the best I can, and I hope you enjoy the videos. And if you want a real 3D printing tutorial, you go watch Teaching Tech, or you go watch Maker's Muse, or any of those guys. But the problem I see is that sometimes people hold themselves out as experts. And then they say, and you say, oh, yeah, well, how's your thing work? And they go, can't explain it to you. It's a black art. That is dishonest. Either they don't know, in which case, why should you buy their product? Or they are lying to your face and just don't want to tell you what's really going on. In which case, I mean, maybe buy their product. Maybe it's a good product. But you know. All right. I just hate that. I believe that fundamentally the majority of knowledge is knowable and explainable. If you think about the sum total of human knowledge as a bubble, and everything in the bubble is things that we know. At the edge of the bubble, there are things we are just learning and don't know. And those things are full of uncertainty. And as we expand that bubble through exploration and science and testing, then we become more certain about the things at the edge of the bubble. But unless you're talking about one of the things at the edge of the bubble, I feel like it's a cop-out to be like, I don't know, it's just a black art. You can never tell. That's not always true. Like sometimes there isn't a right answer. And you're like, well, you just got to try some things and see what works. Like there are things out there for which there's no perfect right answer. But I feel like that answer is kind of a cop-out answer that is too often abused. And in the case of filters specifically, filters are extremely well studied, extremely well documented. There are experts in filtering and out there. And the fact that there are look at, I'm going to rant myself right out of the end of the stream, but what can you do? Look at what Chris Rosser has done with frame resonance analysis. Chris Rosser has taken resonance analysis and finite element analysis, and he has put it on YouTube for an FPV audience. But he didn't invent that. That knowledge has existed forever. It's for years. It's been around for years. It's just that nobody in FPV was making content about it until now. But it'd be like, I don't know, frame design, kind of a black art. No. Just nobody has actually brought an academic understanding of it to FPV before. And the reason I'm specifically annoyed about talking about filters is there are people who are experts in filters who are working on filtering. They're writing firmware and code for Betaflight and EmuFlight and Flight 1 there are people who know about this stuff, and so anybody who says, oh, it's just a black art, no, that's disrespectful to the people who are actual experts and who are working on it to say that. Okay. There you go. Del Squatcho FPV says, it also sucks when the experts dismiss your subjective experiences because they know better. That's a tough one, Del Squatcho. Oftentimes, I think that's a communication failure. You should never tell somebody that they're not having the experience that they're having. But at the same time, a lot of times I think the communication between someone who isn't in the domain, like, is just a total newbie, and someone who's an expert, they're just not talking to each other. Anyway, it's 3 p.m. That's it. That's the end of the stream. Where's Siati? Siati, are you here, man? Siati's not here. Is he streaming today? I guess not. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming out. Stephen Covington, thanks for a 99-cent super chat. We're caught up on super chats. That's it, though. I guess Siati's not here. I would hope that he was streaming. Yeah, a lot of times, so since he's not here, I'll just keep talking for a minute. A lot of times a beginner comes into a domain and doesn't know how to explain what they're experiencing in a way that makes sense to an expert. So a beginner will say, I'm having these oscillations. When they'll say, I have oscillations when I drop my throttle. And I'll be like, that's weird. Like, what could cause oscillations when you drop throttle? And I'll say, can I see a video of what you're talking about? And then I look at the video, and actually it's not oscillations, it's nose dip, right? It's not oscillating, it's just dipping the nose. I'm like, oh, I see, you need a higher eye to... So I could have responded and said, well, you can't get oscillations when you drop throttle, so sorry, that's... And the beginner would be like, oh, you're contradicting my experience. But you just have to probe for more information without devaluing someone's experience, because they may not be using the same terminology. Anyway, Siati is working on a movie. That's right, he's working on a movie, so he may not be streaming this week. But that's why my answer, whenever somebody says something to me and they're like, my quad's doing this thing, and I think that's not possible, I try to probe for more evidence and say, well, can I see video of it? Try to probe for more evidence and figure out what they're trying to tell me is happening. Because they're trying to tell me something that's real. So, Stephen Covington, thank you for a $5 super chat. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap up whether Siati's streaming or not. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I will see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time on our normal schedule. But that's going to do it for now. Y'all have a great afternoon or evening, depending on your time zone. See you tomorrow, everybody. Happy flying.